Alright, so on November 27th, 2025 KST, the Seoul Central District Court held the third hearing for Min Hee-jin's stock payment lawsuit against HYBE. And it was a super long session, and a significant portion of the day was spent questioning Min Hee-jin directly. And there were lots of articles that came out today. The session I heard ended at 8:30 p.m. at night. Now, I found two articles that basically documented what she said in court and how she tried to explain her actions. There might be better, like more organized articles that might be coming out like tomorrow, if not already. But I wanted to look at like what she actually said in court. So in this video, I'm gonna go through those two articles one by one, and I will read and translate each article for you guys in English, but I will try to keep my own thoughts to a minimum until the very end of each section, because honestly the articles are already extremely long, and these are all what Min Hee-jin said in court. Yeah, and yeah, the reason they're long is simply she talks a lot. So I'll let the article speak first, and then I'll break down what they actually mean. Okay, so let's start with part one. And the challenge, the real challenge for today, for this video, is for me to minimize sighing. Or, yeah, I gotta control my emotions a bit whenever I come across something ridiculous that she says, she must be saying. All right. Let's start here. Title: Min Hee-jin, quotation mark, I could have received 100 billion won, but I didn't need it. I endured hell because of NewJeans. And then tears in court. Oh man. So exciting, isn't it? All right. Reported by Yoon Hye-young, Sports Today. Former ADOR CEO Min Hee-jin broke into tears during questioning. On the afternoon of the 27th, the Seoul Central District Court's Civil Division 31st held a third hearing for the lawsuit filed by Min Hee-jin and two others against HYBE over the payments related to their exercise of a put option. If I remember correctly, those two others refer to Lee Sang-woo and Shin Dong-hoon, the two VPs, former VPs of ADOR. On the same day, the court also heard the fifth session of HYBE's separate lawsuit seeking confirmation of the termination of the shareholders' agreement involving Min Hee-jin and two other executives. Both sides have been clashing over whether the put option is valid. Last November, Min Hee-jin notified HYBE that she intended to exercise her put option on ADOR shares. Under the formula in the contract, the option price is calculated by multiplying the average operating profit of the last two fiscal years, 2022 and 2023, by 13, then dividing by the total number of shares issued. According to the shareholders' agreement between Min Hee-jin and ADOR, Min Hee-jin can exercise the put option on 75% of her 18% stake, meaning 13.5%. ADOR recorded an operating loss of 4 billion won in 2022 and an operating profit of 33.5 billion won in 2023. Using those numbers, Min Hee-jin would be entitled to roughly 26 billion Korean won. At the previous hearing, the court questioned HYBE's CLO Jung Jin-soo as well as Min Hee-jin herself. Jung Jin-soo testified that Min Hee-jin had asked HYBE to raise the option multiplier from 13 to 30. By the way, that alone is itself quite ridiculous. It's unheard of in this industry. And then it says that there were suspicious reports from inside and outside the company, including a meeting with Japanese investors, and that Min Hee-jin had drafted documents such as the so-called HYBE's 7 Deadly Sins. So these are what Mr. Jung Jin-soo, testified about. Now, Min Hee-jin denied these allegations, saying they were not true. Okay? Now, the court continued with Min Hee-jin's questioning again today, starting with cross-examination from HYBE's side. Yeah, so that night, they ran out of time because, again, Min Hee-jin talked a lot. That's why we are having this, part two, another hearing. And this time, Min Hee-jin talked even more. Okay? So, here we go. Oh my god, how long is this paragraph? Okay. Min Hee-jin's attorney asked. So Min Hee-jin's attorney, probably Sejong lawyers? It doesn't... Okay, I'll have to look. I'm assuming that, it is Sejong lawyers because they already took this case. Min Hee-jin's attorney asked, you left SM Entertainment around 2019 and joined Big Hit, the predecessor of the plaintiff company, meaning HYBE. You had many offers at the time. Why did you choose them? Min Hee-jin replied, if anything, the reason was a bit unusual. I had a lot of offers from different companies, and while I was weighing my options, I resigned from SM on December 31st, 2018. Up until then, SM tried to stop me from leaving, and there was months of back and forth. Internally, people didn't really know I was leaving. By the way, we have to take into account the fact that this is Min Hee-jin. So everything that is going to be said in the hearing is said by Min Hee-jin. And you know what that means. Okay? That we have to take everything she says with a huge grain of salt. And then she says, but on January 2nd, 2019, just 2 days after I resigned, Chairman Bang Si-hyuk contacted me. We met the following week. I was stunned. I asked how he even knew I had left, and he said there were people inside SM who fed him information. Through them, he heard I resigned. He told me he always thought of me as human SM and never imagined I would actually quit. He said he was glad I left and wanted to recruit someone like me. He pursued me very intensely. He's very straightforward by nature, so he was honest with me. I told him I had ongoing talks with other companies and needed to hear what he had to say before deciding. Then he laid out his vision, Bang Si-hyuk's vision. He said he wanted to reform the industry, that he had deep distrust toward the entertainment business and strong criticism of SM, and that he wanted to start something new with me. He said he wanted to create a girl group, but he needed me for it. He talked about glam, saying the group had failed badly. He had worked on them with So Sung-jin, who was then the CEO. Why did it say who was then the CEO of Source Music? Oh, wait. Source Music 대표. It's still So Sung-jin, isn't it? Oh, interesting. Okay, it says So Sung-jin is not the CEO. It's someone named Kim Joo-young. By the way, that person is not the same one as the former CEO of ADOR. Okay, but right now, So Sung-jin is the internal director. Okay. All right. That's why the article said that who was then the CEO of Source Music. Right now, So Sung-jin is the internal director and the founder. All right. Good. Back to the article. So, Bang Si-hyuk talked about glam, saying the group had failed badly, and he had worked on them with So Sung-jin, who was then the CEO of Source Music, and he said they failed catastrophically. He told me he lacked confidence in producing a girl group, which is why he needed me. Notice how she's like inserting details that do not really need to be said in court. And I'm pretty sure she's doing it intentionally. It says, at the time, I was also considering an offer from Kakao Entertainment. Okay. But Chairman Bang kept contacting me, even asking me out to meals. During one of those meals, my parents happened to call. When I mentioned, by the way, why did she mention Kakao Entertainment all of a sudden? I wonder how much of what she's saying in court has been advised by Sejong lawyers. I'm assuming 100%. But given the nature of Min Hee-jin, I don't know. I wonder to what extent Sejong lawyers were surprised today after everything Min Hee-jin said in court. Let's talk more about it at the end. All right. During one of those meals, my parents happened to call. Min Hee-jin's parents happened to call. When I mentioned I was with Chairman Bang, he said, "Could you put your parents on the phone?" I was stunned, but I handed the phone over. 부모님 좀 바꿔주세요. That's what Bang Seok said. So I was stunned, but I handed the phone over. My mom panicked and passed it to my dad, and Bang Seok told him, "I'll make sure your daughter can do what she truly wants." He said things like that working with him would make me lucky, that he'd been a long time admirer of my work and really wanted to work together. It was almost like watching someone kneel. She said it. 거의 무릎 꿇는 상황이었기 때문에 it was almost like Bang Seok was kneeling. Okay. Almost like watching Bang Seok kneel. From my side, going to Kakao Entertainment would have meant carving out a new path, clearing obstacles, and building everything from scratch. But if someone trusted me this much and promised to let me work freely, it felt like this could be the right place. Even after this dispute began, my parents were devastated. The fact that he even spoke to them like that shows how intensely he tried to recruit me. Okay, I mean, I can see what kind of direction she's taking with by saying these things, but like, come on. All right, next. I didn't need to stay in entertainment, but Bang Seok's determination felt similar to mine. I needed full freedom. I could have started my own label, but he said he would support me, give me unlimited backing. I told him that if he interfered with my work, I wouldn't be able to stay, but if he left me alone, I would do well on my own. He agreed to leave me be. That level of earnest persuasion is why I chose to join Big Hit. So this much is what she said to her lawyer's question. All right, next session. When she was asked, Source Music was originally supposed to debut HYBE's first girl group, but Source Music ended up launching a group first with Sakura and Kim Chaewon. Did they ever ask for your understanding? Okay, here we go again. Bringing in Le Seraphim. Min Hee-jin replied, "No, and I think you need the full context to understand why. They didn't suddenly decide to bring those members in. There was a long chain of events. Before I joined the company, when Bang Seok first told me, let's create a girl group, I assumed it would be a team led by me. After I joined, what he actually proposed was different. He told me he had acquired the label Source Music, but that the label had no production capability, only management. He directly expressed distrust in CEO So Seung-jin's ability to produce." Oh wow, you're really taking that route. He said he needed my production work but wanted to collaborate with Source Music because there might be some promising trainees there. At that point, I hadn't seen any trainees. I told him I wanted to start with my own label rather than another. We had friction over that. Eventually, I looked at the trainees, but most of them weren't suitable for the kind of group I wanted to debut. Maybe one was possible. 저는 그때까지 연습생을 본 적이 없었다. Does it mean that she didn't meet or see any trainees, or they didn't have any trainees? Because 2 sentences later, she said that eventually she observed some of the trainees, right? I looked at the trainees, but most of them weren't suitable for the kind of group I wanted to debut. Maybe one was possible. On top of that, doing this girl group through another label was incredibly stressful for me. There's even an email to Bang Seok where I wrote about this. Didn't you say I could start with my own label? I told him I wanted to start under my label and that it would be hard for me to work with another company. Now, does she really think that people have all of a sudden forgotten about the Dispatch article that was written last year? Including all the conversations that she had with the shaman as early as 2021, April. Sorry. It's super hard to go tangent. Not really tangent, but anyways. Bang Seok told me, you're not entering Source Music. This is a 3-way cooperated project. This way, the debut can happen faster and you don't need to worry about Source Music. I will arrange everything. This isn't SM. SM과 다르기 때문에 if you have complaints or see problems, just tell me. I'm someone who can fix those things. He reassured me over and over. Since I had already joined and had decided to work hard, I agreed. That's how the 3-way collaboration system was created. But naturally, because everyone had different philosophies, we had many clashes. It became a fight over who had the final say. There is no absolute answer in production. Bang Seok has his own fixed system. I had mine. And Source Music wasn't even really part of the discussion. Wow, really? She's really saying that? Given all the evidence that's already released. Man. 소성진. A lot of people compare 소성진 of Source Music to Buddha. I mean, yeah, they have taken legal actions against Min Hee-jin, and they're still fighting. But like, he hasn't said anything publicly. If it were some ordinary persons, they would have gone mad and like rant on social media. But if you look at like all the HYBE executives, they are pretty quiet, at least on the surface. You know what I'm saying? And I'm very glad that they're, keeping it classy like that. And just taking legal actions. And by the way, that's like the HYBE way, All right, let's keep going. So she said, Source Music wasn't even really part of the discussion. Bang Seok said he wanted a team doing hyper pop like Billie Eilish. All right, talk about Billie Eilish. All of a sudden, it didn't match the trainees' personalities, nor did it align with my creative direction. Okay. Hold on. I told him that direction wouldn't succeed, that I couldn't do it. I asked what kind of music he wanted, because the whole reason I wanted my own label was to create the music and creative output I envisioned. but Bang Seok took a very long time to play me any music. Wow. He only gave me references. There was no concrete direction, so I had to keep asking. Is she really blaming on Bang Seok when it was really her who delayed the whole project? After more than a year of argument, the pandemic hit and delayed everything further. I remember one call clearly. Bang Seok said he didn't know what to say anymore, that he had lost his sense of direction, and asked me what music I wanted to make. I was stunned. He had insisted on handling the music, so how could he suddenly say that? I told him he needed to show me what he envisioned so we could choose a direction. He asked if I could speak first. Arguing wasn't going to help. So I said I would organize my thoughts and present a concept. In the meantime, I played him many demos of the music I wanted. This is all still saved in our chat logs. I even played the demo for NewJeans' debut song, Attention. He rejected everything, saying it sounded like remnants of SM or wasn't aligned with his vision. Did she? But, Attention was a song that Source Music already had and prepared. And this is why Dispatch released these videos of the members as trainees, dancing for Attention at the Source Music practice room, because it's a glaring evidence that Min Hee-jin wasn't even part of the discussion for NewJeans. She did have a role as a CBO, right, Chief Brand Officer, but originally Source Music was handling NewJeans, the N team, Project N or Team N. But is she saying that she got the song herself? I mean, I'm now confused. Not confused about the truth. What is she doing? What is she saying here? I even played the demo for NewJeans' debut song, Attention. And then she's saying that he rejected everything, saying it sounded like remnants of SM or wasn't aligned with his vision. Notice how many times already she mentioned SM and Kakao Entertainment here. And I'm pretty sure that was part of the formula plan that she had. Not sure that one was advised by Sejong lawyers, though. I'll be curious. Even so, she said, I believed those songs were necessary for the direction I wanted, so I rewrote the entire plan using them. That leaked planning document is the same proposal. I told him directly that I would prepare the full concept and brief him. Through all of this, my impression was that Bang Seok really lacked confidence in debuting a new girl group. He voiced many worries. Some points made sense, but overall, I believed the trainees could succeed, and our views differed greatly. Why am I explaining all this? 왜 이 말씀을 드리냐면, because it helps explain why they may have wanted to bring in Sakura and Kim Chae-won. My guess is that debuting those members first felt more marketable. That's only my speculation. I had no idea they were being recruited until I saw the news articles that Sakura and Kim Chae-won were joining. On Twitter, people were asking, isn't Min Hee-jin supposed to debut rookies? Bang Seok had recruited me heavily because of my reputation. And suddenly, it looked like I was helping re-debut already famous idols. It created misunderstandings. It's so Min Hee-jin-like, mentioning Twitter. 당시 트위터에 무슨 얘기가 있었냐면 in court. right? In court, saying on Twitter, these were the things that people were saying at the time. Yeah, because she's the type who brings in some random commentators' comments in court saying that, look, this is the evidence, this is the public opinion. Bang Si-hyuk had recruited me heavily because of my reputation, and suddenly it looked like I was helping re-debut already famous idols. It created misunderstandings. I wanted to correct the narrative, but the company didn't tell me anything. So I had no idea what their plan was. Even the trainees were anxious. They wondered if they would still debut first despite senior idols joining. For young trainees, debuting is everything. Having their timeline pushed back by years is devastating. The training team even told me that the members were extremely unsettled. In the middle of all this, HYBE's then CEO Park Ji-won called me to the VIP room and told me to meet with Sejong. I was suddenly summoned. I think our deputy CEO was there too, but I remember clearly. It was me, Sejong, and Park Ji-won. Park said, "I'm sorry, Min Hee-jin, but the team we promoted as your girl group will probably have to delay their debut." I asked why. By the way, I would really encourage you guys to read the Dispatch article or watch the video where I've discussed this article, because then you will see that why I cannot help but stop and wonder what is going on. You know what I'm saying? All right, but let's keep going. I asked why. He said, Park Ji-won said, Sakura and Kim Chae-won had joined, and because of their contract period, they needed to debut first. He said, your team should become Source Music's next team. I was shocked. I asked Park, you want me to do the next team? I had joined to build a group under my own label with my name on it. We had already compromised once to do a 3-way project, but now they wanted me to make another label's group the next lineup. That breaks the promise made to the public and destroys my reputation. I said, is this company acting like 사기? Acting like a con artist? Did you deceive me? You cannot break promises like this. What about the trainees who have trained all this time? Being next could mean years from now. I told them directly. I said con artist, but 양아치, that was the word that we recently discussed. Like maybe jerk or something, but much harsher. That's how difficult things were. But I told them directly, if you tell me to handle the next team, I will quit. I was furious and walked out. Park Ji-won apologized afterward, saying he felt stuck in the middle and that the situation objectively made no sense. That's how difficult things were. That's why the situation escalated the way it did. All right. When she was asked, are you saying HYBE and Source Music deliberately didn't promote your group? Min Hee-jin answered, people who don't know the entertainment industry often misunderstand this. They say, why would Bang Si-hyuk sabotage a team within his own company? But once you work in the real world, you see that plenty of things happen that don't line up with common sense. Many people shift their behavior depending on their personal interest. Yeah, she's basically doing a self-introduction and the environment that she had worked before. To me, Bang Si-hyuk was someone who would pursue you obsessively when he needed you, but once he didn't, he could drop you just as easily. And that didn't only apply to staff or executives around him. I think it applied to artists and even his own business choices. If you're wondering why a parent company chairman would undercut other artists, this part is important. You have to understand the governance structure. Bang Si-hyuk sits at the top, and beneath him are multiple labels, separated deliberately, like the investment, saying that you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket. He told me at the beginning that he needed my label. But looking back, I've come to think I was simply material for HYBE's stock market listing. Like IPO? He needed me for the IPO. BTS was the only major asset then, so he must have felt the company needed more material. I didn't know any of this because he told me they weren't planning to list. Later, during the SM acquisition battle and the listing process, I started to understand. Again, I'm not sure whether these things that she are saying are directed at the judge or the public, the Min Hee-jin supporters that still remain as Min Hee-jin supporters. Like, is she feeding the materials for them? Or is she really trying to persuade the judge? Not sure. Because the way she's like trying to bring in all the elements that were discussed online since last year. She's trying to weave in everything. You know what I'm saying? All right, moving on. He told me at the beginning that he needed my label. But looking back, I've come to think I was simply... I just read that, right? Under this governance, Bang Hsieh wasn't someone who wanted to strengthen the company by building up creativity and internal quality. He seemed to believe the company could survive through external expansion through M&A. That meant employees could be treated as expendable. Yep, another self-introduction. That meant employees could be treated as expendable. There's a drama called 당신의만, Your Taste, that I watched recently, and it reminded me of HYBE. In it, a big corporation circles around small restaurant owners trying to recruit them for franchising. They lure them in, then discard the original owners. I often spoke bluntly to Bang Hsieh. Even while he was fighting with me, I think he still saw me as someone he wanted to keep on his side. He once said something like, "It's better to have Heejin with me than have her leave and become my enemy." I remember thinking, why would he say it in such a strange way? If you think about this analogy, you will understand why. During all this, I think he felt that instead of letting me promote the trainees I was raising, trainees who might grow popular under me, someone who didn't just follow orders, it would be better to let the other labels, the ones who obeyed him, take all the ingredients and raise new groups themselves. At one point, they told me not to promote my group. Park Ji-won said he didn't want the public to get confused into thinking I was working on Le Seraphim. I told him that was nonsense. He said, "I'm sorry, but that's what Chairman Bang said. Please just enjoy for now." Is she... has she been like sleeping for the entire, like the past year? Because the materials that she's talking about is the same as what she said during the first press conference. You know, that where she wore that green like sweater or whatever with the blue hat. Oh, goodness. Up until then, I had repeatedly turned down You Quiz on the Block. Yeah, so this is the TV show that she's talking about, where Min Hee-jin appeared around December of 2021. So up until then, she said, I had repeatedly turned down You Quiz on the Block to appear as a guest, she means. But I eventually called the writer myself and said I would appear. I told them something had changed and that I needed to go on. It reached a point where I couldn't promote my own team, and I had to go on You Quiz on purpose just to create space for them. That's the kind of situation I was pushed into. So what she's really saying here is that, I mean, this doesn't make sense, because what she's saying is that Le Seraphim, HYBE was promoting Le Seraphim a lot, but not NewJeans. That's why she appeared in this TV show to talk about her new girl group. But again, this was December 2021. But what does she mean when HYBE was promoting Le Seraphim a lot? I mean, that's what she was like referring to, because for example, the members were introduced in April of 2022. Do you get it? This happened. You quiz. This thing happened way before when the members were first introduced for Le Seraphim. By the way, Kazuha's vocals are getting really amazing. I've been impressed by her vocals. Alright, moving on. Regarding how the shareholders' agreements came to be signed, Min Hee-jin said, I am someone who values reputations and creative quality more than money. When we were creating ADOR, Bang Seok told me I had to start with 0 equity. He said, if you want trainees, the company must be 100% HYBE owned. I told Park Ji-won, this isn't about money. It just feels wrong. How am I supposed to stay motivated? They then offered me stock options, but I didn't sign the shareholders' agreements because of money. Once NewJeans debuted and succeeded immediately, the level of pressure from HYBE throughout 2023 was unbelievably intense and exhausting. And when I say pressure, I don't think people understand what that looks like. HYBE's PR team refused to properly promote NewJeans' achievements. Wow. By the way, it was Minji and Honey who got to appear as, they appeared in the music video of BTS song Permission to Dance. And that's also part of the marketing and promotion for NewJeans. Alright, from now on, I will really try to minimize stopping and saying my own thoughts, okay? HYBE's advertising team tried to divert the flood of ads coming in for NewJeans toward other labels. They were trying to distribute the scraps. Other teams, like merch production or concert planning, also had different agendas. ADOR was making money and doing well, but they acted like we were difficult to work with. I heard plenty of trash talk behind the scenes. By the way, maybe, the question I was asking earlier, whether is she really trying to persuade the judge or the public or her supporters? Maybe she's basically talking to the members, NewJeans members. Because I am, at this point, like 50% sure that at least one member or some of the members, for them, the Min Hee-jin gaslighting effect has been wearing thin, and some might say that the reason Heejin and Heejin returned was because they have realized that she wasn't really the person that they thought she was. Maybe not, but that's just a thought that I'm having right now. Maybe she's saying all these for the members or their parents to hear. Because otherwise, who is her audience at this point? All right, where are we? Yeah, other teams like merch production or concert planning also had different agendas. ADOR was making money and doing well, but they acted like we were difficult to work with. I heard plenty of trash talk behind the scenes. Right before the debuts of NewJeans and Le Seraphim, after debut plans were confirmed, some executives were drinking together. Someone asked which group they thought would do better, and CFO Lee Kyung-jun said, the Chairman Bang's team must succeed no matter what. If it doesn't, what will the other labels look at and learn from? Discipline will fall apart. Another label CEO who happened to be there told me later, even though we weren't close, that he felt the whole situation was bizarre. He called me and said, you need to be careful. The other CEOs are jealous of you and are actively trying to block you. You should know this. Everything makes sense if you consider all of these to be her self-introduction, so to say, I feel like. And then she said, I'm not the type to obsess over personal relationships, but I could still feel all of it. So I told Park Ji-won, "You're putting so much pressure on me that it's draining. I need a sense of ownership. I need to have a voice in this company. Give me that ownership through a shareholders agreement." I said, "I'll have to produce a boy group too, so let's at least be fair. Let's do this properly." That was the perspective from which I asked for the shareholders agreement. That was a long-ass context. So anticlimactic. And then boom, there was a shareholder agreement that I signed. All right, moving on. Speaking about the situation at the time the contract was signed, Min Hee-jin said, "Back then, Park Ji-won," by the way, this is Park Ji-won, HYBE Park Ji-won, the former CEO of HYBE. I wonder what he's doing right now. Back then, Park Ji-won had also had many complaints about HYBE. He had a lot of resentment toward Bang Si-hyuk, and we often talked about those frustrations. I never imagined Park Ji-won would betray me, not because I was naive, but because I genuinely could not imagine anyone inserting a ridiculous clause like that 5% provision, a clause that would trap someone completely, basically a slave contract. Oh my god, here we go, slave contract again. From what I understand, that clause reflected the views of CFO Lee Kyung-jun and CEO Park Ji-won, supposedly for tax reasons, though I didn't fully understand it. At the time, I said I was going to quit. They told me to stop saying that. Park Ji-won was also desperate for NewJeans' success. He needed it. He probably didn't even know whether NewJeans would really succeed in such a short period. But once I proved it, before the next quarter began, he told me I had to decide within 3 days. They didn't even give me time to review it properly. He told me to show it to the deputy CEO. He said, "Trust me, I would never stab you in the back. Just sign it. 자기를 믿어라. 등 칠 일 없다. Sign해." I didn't sign because I trusted Park Ji-won as a person. I trusted the position, the CEO of HYBE. I thought there's no way the CEO would do something like that. That's why I signed. Regarding the non-compete clause, 경업 금지, Min Hee-jin said, "I felt a deep sense of betrayal. I only discovered it by chance, and I couldn't make sense of it. So I asked, what does this even mean? Someone told me that's not even the worst part. The permanent non-compete is more serious. You should talk to the company." So I asked Park Ji-won, but he kept dodging the question. He kept changing his words, circling around the issue. That's when I realized he had also lied to me about the call option. It made me think these people must have coordinated this together to trap me and take advantage of me. When Min Hee-jin's attorney asked, "The plaintiff claims you tried to steal NewJeans. That doesn't make any sense, right?" 원고는 뉴진스 빼가기라고 주장하는데 말이 안 되죠. Even that sentences is hilarious. That doesn't make any sense, right? That was what the Sejong lawyer asked. Min Hee-jin answered, "It makes no sense on multiple levels." Regarding the allegation that she pushed for expanded authority to select subcontractors, she said, "I didn't have that authority in the first place. From my perspective, if HYBE and ADOR are both supposed to benefit, shouldn't we be working with people who actually do good work? At the time, HYBE had a lot of internal transactions among affiliates that looked like unfair funneling of work. For example, they would pay high fees, claiming it ensured high quality. Meanwhile, she paid much higher fees to the Dolphiners for director Shin Woo-seok for NewJeans music videos. So what is she talking about? By the way, funny story, just really quick. So in this article and the next article, you will see that she's blaming on everybody. And at this point, it kind of sounds like she's betraying not only the members and even their parents, but also Sejong lawyers. It gets funny. But for some reason, she has appeared as a witness on behalf for Shin-woo-seok, director Shin-woo-seok of Dolphiners. So people are wondering about their true relationship. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that was kind of random stream of consciousness. But that's what she said. She said that at the time, HYBE had a lot of internal transactions among affiliates that looked like unfair funneling of work. For example, they would pay high fees, claiming it ensured high quality. You could see why my thoughts were leading to dolphin kidnappers, right? But I believed we could get better quality at lower cost some elsewhere, so I kept pushing back. My intention was simply to include that negotiation point since we were discussing other terms. I didn't even know it was part of the exclusive contract. When asked, the plaintiff argues that documents prove UN ADOR's former deputy CEO plotted to seize management control. Did you ever receive or share any documents like that? Min Hee-jin replied, not at all. 전혀 없다. Not at all. To the follow-up question, when did you first learn these documents existed? She answered, only after they conducted the illegal audit on me. They mentioned a document, so I asked him, did you write any document? And he said, it's just a memo. That's when I found out. 자료. Okay. 각주 11. What part is this? So what you're looking at right now is the court decision on NewJeans versus ADOR. And I have textified, so I can always go back and do Command F stuff. You know what I'm saying? And here's the English version. 판단, course analysis, number 2. I believe that. At least that part. Okay, this part. Sorry, it's gonna take just a minute because I'm just curious. Is it this? Number 3. The reasons that the defendants cite in this case as grounds for the plaintiff's alleged breach of contractual obligations appear, as shown above, to have originated from Min Hee-jin's prior preparation work, specifically her meticulous review of documents shared among HYBE, ADOR, and the defendants, in order to identify elements useful for creating negative public sentiment against HYBE and for initiating litigation, the court said. But she is saying that she didn't know about the existence of such documents. All right. So here, she's basically blaming everything on Lee Sang-woo, the former VP of ADOR. And I'm assuming that Lee Sang-woo agreed to this. Like Min Hee-jin blaming everything on him. Mysteriously. I don't know. Who knows? Alright, moving on. Because at this, I don't even know what he looks like. Lee Sang-woo. Min Hee-jin's attorney asked, the plaintiff claims you attended a VC meeting. Venture capitalist, VC meeting, where people advise you to take NewJeans out of HYBE. What does 데리고 나오라, take them out, mean? Even mean in this context? That's what her lawyers asked. Min Hee-jin replied, the whole reason this lawsuit was filed and why I had to countersue is absurd. 황당하고 어이가 없다. It's surprising and absurd. Even the police dismissed the case the first time because how could someone with not even 20% ownership possibly seize control of a company? I don't understand how they concocted such a bizarre story. You know the police related document that has been going around online, which basically says what Min Hee-jin said during the questioning. You know, Min Hee-jin's camp and her followers are regarding it as like this Bible. Meanwhile, not looking at the full court documents. I don't know. It's just so funny. And she said, I can name every person who was at that so-called VC gathering. There were people who had left Naver. I only described them as VC to the deputy CEO because I had no better way to explain the situation to him. That's her excuse. How did that conversation even come up? It was meant to be a comforting get-together. At the time, I was dealing with conflict with HYBE over merchandise issues, and they knew I was exhausted. It was a sudden meetup, and one of them brought along his friends, former Naver employees. By the way, Naver is the largest search engine in Korea, and it's one of the largest platform companies in Korea. They asked me, Heejin, can't you break the contract? Can't you break the contract? I said, how would I break it? There's no way. Even if I'm being mistreated, there's nothing I can do. I told them I felt trapped and helpless. They said, if it's so painful for you, then you should get out, or someone should take you out of that environment. Basically, telling me to leave the toxic situation. How could I leave? I had a binding contract. And this was all said in a private Kakao Talk chat. How is that wrong? If I privately message a friend saying, I hate my company so much, I feel like burning it down, does that make me an arsonist? It makes no sense that such harmless venting has been twisted into something this extreme. I can't understand how things escalated to this point over something so absurd. Yeah, I have lots of things I want to say, but I gotta finish this at some point. And we're haven't even reached article number 2. All right, let's hurry up. Next, regarding her conversations with the parents of NewJeans members, Min Hee-jin said, after the Islet teaser came out, the parents started contacting me one after another. They said the concept felt eerily similar and asked me, how does this make any sense? Their anger didn't come out of nowhere. Even back when the members were being transferred from Source Music to ADOR, HYBE never met with the parents. The kids were being moved around like luggage, and the parents hated that. Their distrust kept growing, especially during the chaotic period when Le Sserafim ended up debuting first. By the way, in case you don't know, the total investment amount put into NewJeans was much larger than put into Le Sserafim. Even though, from her perspective, or based on what she just described, Le Sserafim was the chairman's project that cannot or should not fail. How ironic is that? The mothers were also extremely upset that NewJeans' achievements weren't being properly promoted. And then, in the middle of all that, Islet sparked controversy for having a concept suspiciously similar to NewJeans. Every online community was buzzing. People were asking things like, did Bang Seok make this because it's the same company? Did he get Min Hee-jin's approval? Well, they're in the same company, so she must have approved it. That kind of speculation was everywhere. Where? Twitter again? There was so much noise that the parents said, we need to raise this with the company. So we met in the conference room on the first floor. Parent. So if you do Command F for this court document, there are 14 instances where the court mentioned the parents, NewJeans' parents. Why? right here. Min Hee-jin further planned to use the parents of NewJeans as public advocates, having them speak out on the eyelid copying issue in order to generate public sentiment that HYBE was treating NewJeans unfairly, all while she herself stayed in the background. That was what the court said, believe it or not. Okay? The evidence indicates that Min Hee-jin had planned in advance to separate ADOR from HYBE, and to that end, she prepared a public opinion campaign, considered filing reports with relevant authorities, and initiating legal action, and sought to find investors to acquire ADOR. Again, this is what the court said. And multiple instances where the parents were mentioned. She decided that the members' parents would directly raise objections to HYBE rather than Min Hee-jin or ADOR doing so themselves. Parents were deeply involved in her initiatives against eyelids, which many fans simply cannot forgive her about. Let's go back. Regarding the meeting notes written at the time by the former deputy CEO, Min Hee-jin said, "I have never seen them. He wouldn't show me a memo he wrote for himself." When asked, what kind of response were the parents demanding? What about the meeting notes? So former deputy CEO, probably Lee Sang-woo, Mr. Lee, wrote a meeting note, and then Min Hee-jin never saw it, even though they were in such a close relationship that she even revised the documents that VP Lee had to write to submit to HYBE to explain his situation about the sexual harassment allegations. Interesting. All right, where are we? Yeah, but she said, "I had never seen them, the meeting notes. He wouldn't show me a memo he wrote for himself." When she was asked, what kind of response were the parents demanding about the eyelid situation, she answered, "They said we should protest to HYBE, that we should bring it directly to Chairman Bang. Some parents were extremely worried, and some were very firm. They asked, what if our kids get blacklisted for speaking up? But the general consensus was that we had to say what needed to be said. By then, their frustration had reached its limit. Even media outlets that were normally friendly to HYBE were asking, why would they release something so similar?" Yeah, probably the media outlets and journalists that you have contacted before. Did the court also mention 언론? 언론전. Okay. 기자, journalist. Okay, maybe not. But yeah, there was a Kakao Talk conversation where she said that they have to reach out to as many people as possible to get involved in her campaigns, public opinions campaigns against HYBE, right? I mean, basically, when you said media campaign, preparing for a media campaign while also anticipating litigation. Anyways, Min Hee-jin continued, "I believe HYBE insisted on this narrative because they wanted to bully me. How little must they think of me to copy my work so openly and look down on me like that? Being copied inside my own company felt like pure disrespect. How ridiculous did they think I was? Was the reason Bang Xiao recruited me so that he could freely copy my ideas? Did he think I wouldn't say a word as long as I stayed inside the company? What I meant was, Don't treat us with that level of contempt. As for the KakaoTalk message saying send the email under the parents' names, she explained. Okay, here we go. So again, this is a question asked by the Sejong lawyers. She responded, the mothers are homemakers. 엄마들이 가정주부시다. The mothers of NewJeans. Writing an email is difficult for them. Wow. Mind you, what I'm trying to find is 디스패치 뉴진스 부모 민희진 변호사 Dispatch NewJeans parents 민희진 lawyers. These mothers are young. And what Min Hee-jin is saying is that they are having difficult times writing emails. Why? Because they are homemakers. Oh. Yeah, let me repeat that one more time. The mothers are homemakers. Writing an email is difficult for them. They said, if we write a draft of what we want to say, can you look over it? So I said, yes. That's part of the ADOR CEO's job. There's nothing wrong with the CEO of ADOR communicating with HYBE about issues that directly affect ADOR. I am the CEO of ADOR. To avoid breach of duty, protecting the artist must come first. If their rights are being violated and they need to protest, of course, I should help them. Now, sorry, I just cannot help. Speaking of protection or email. Yeah, the court mentions emails a lot, 21 times total. Email. A draft. She also reviewed and discussed a draft email written by one of the mothers to HYBE, deciding whether to modify or include references to possible legal action. Share a draft complaint email intent to be sent to Kim Tae-ho. Email, rewrite the email. Yeah, this indicates that Min Hee-jin personally... Where are we? Yeah, this part. This indicates that Min Hee-jin personally instructed Lee Sang-woo, the VP, to rewrite the email to appear as if written by a father, fabricating an impression of parental outrage over ILIT's alleged plagiarism of NewJeans. And again, this is not something written by a Min Hee-jin hater or HYBE shill. It's written by none other than the judge of the Korean court. And speaking of protection, the court also said, this shows that Min Hee-jin's primary objective was not to remedy unfair trade practices or protect NewJeans from HYBE's alleged album manipulation. And there's a specific sentence. Yeah, here we go again. This statement demonstrates that Min Hee-jin's true intent was to damage HYBE's public image and push HYBE toward selling ADOR, not to protect the defendants, NewJeans, or address specific grievances. Sorry, there's a specific sentence I'm looking for. 보호. We already read this part, right? Oh, yeah, this is it. Here's the highlights. In this context, Min Hee-jin's actions cannot be regarded as efforts to protect NewJeans from ADOR's alleged breach of contract obligations as claimed by NewJeans. This one. Nowhere in the recorded conversations between Min Hee-jin and individuals such as Lee Sang-woo is there any statement suggesting that her actions were intended for the protection of NewJeans. But here, Min Hee-jin is saying, I am the CEO of ADOR. To avoid breach of duty, protecting the artist must come first. If their rights are being violated and they need to protest, of course, I should help them. Responding to HYBE's claim that the complaint email was written with the intent to terminate the exclusive contracts, Min Hee-jin said, what benefit would I possibly gain from that? You have seen all my KakaoTalk messages. I even had full world tour plans laid out. How would NewJeans terminating their contracts help me in any way? If I just stayed put, I could exercise my put option. Terminating an exclusive contract is not something that happens easily. Why would I make such a reckless move? I really don't understand their logic. And if that were my intention, why would I file for injunctions? I hated HYBE by their point, but out of responsibility, I filed for injunctions twice to stay and protect the team. Regarding the KakaoTalk message that said ADOR becomes an empty shell, Min Hee-jin explained, read a full conversation before and after it. How could anyone interpret that as meaning contract termination? What I meant was that if I exited 100% and left the company, then ADOR would become like that. That's all. Regarding the allegation that she prepared a public opinion battle, Min Hee-jin said, isn't HYBE the one waging a public opinion war? Articles about me come out every single day. Yeah, because it's so ridiculous. She said, even trivial things like whether a new company's real estate registration went through become news. They call it a public opinion war, but is there any evidence of that? Yeah, and the court even noted that. What I was actually thinking was this. If he raised the issue of copying, HYBE would either apologize or refuse to apologize. There are only two paths, and realistically, I expected they would not apologize. I thought they would react in another direction, something explosive, something like a public smear campaign. At one point, I even asked Park Ji-won, is your side doing reverse viral attacks internally, like HYBE, reverse viral marketing, or viral attacks? That's how suspicious the situation felt. So when I talked about responding, what I meant was this. I do not agree with the copying. I never gave approval. I need to clearly express my position. It was a defensive response, meant to clarify that I never permitted them to copy anything. It's getting tiring. Let's just finish this as quick as possible. Regarding HYBE's audit, Min Hee-jin said, after I first sent the internal whistleblowing email and the protest email, there was no response for a while. Then I finally received a reply from Kim Tae-ho, the CEO of Belief Lab. The email was so brazen. They said they could not acknowledge any plagiarism. That made both the parents and me furious. I expected HYBE to deny it, but I didn't expect them to deny it to that extent. At that point, I had a feeling they would just keep denying everything. Still, my personality is such that if something needs to be said, I say it. So I sent a second email. You have this problem. Fix it. Chairman Bang, you always told me to speak up if there were issues in the company. So listen and correct it. I expected at least some kind of apology or compromise proposal if they had any conscience. But instead, they suddenly stormed in. They dragged our deputy CEO away like they were arresting him and immediately launched an audit. Later, through my lawyer, I learned that this is not how a parent company is supposed to audit a subsidiary. Kim In-jang lawyer even came into my deputy's home. That's when I connected them with an attorney from Sejong. I asked, is this kind of audit even allowed? Later, I learned the entire process was procedurally wrong. And I'm pretty sure she said all these things to the court for ADOR versus NewJeans case. But in the end, the court decided that, yeah, the audit was fair and it makes sense. All right, responding to HYBE's claim that her press conference was carefully calculated, she said, I cannot even match timing with my own lawyer. And I always end up saying whatever I feel needs to be said. After the audit, oh, right here. So she is saying that right now, in what I'm saying right now, even these, I cannot even match timing with my own lawyer. And I always end up saying whatever I feel needs to be said. After the audit, they smear me nonstop for 3 days. How could I possibly have orchestrated anything? I may be meticulous with work, but in my personal life, no. Would a meticulous person have all her KakaoTalk messages exposed like that? Yeah, why did you do that? Why did you send all these KakaoTalk messages to others using the company server? I really don't understand. And about the Sejong lawyers, I used to feel bad for them because I have a feeling that Min Hee-jin goes like doing all the improvisation and ad-libs that Sejong lawyers do not expect. That was my initial thought. But given what they have been saying in court while defending NewJeans, making all those weird like comparisons, analogies, metaphors, like comparing HYBE to like abusive father and saying that telling these girls to go back to HYBE is like, telling the abused children to go back to abusive father. And there were other like dozens of analogies, not dozens, but like 5 or 6 analogies that they made. So at this point, I do not really feel bad for Sejong lawyers. I mean, I'm kind of curious why they're doing all these at the expense of their own reputation, though. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe the legal sphere is different. It doesn't work like I expect. Where are we? Okay. Min Hee-jin also agreed with the following points. If I had wanted to leave ADOR, wait. Okay. Min Hee-jin also agreed with the following points. If I had wanted to leave ADOR, there would have been no reason to file an injunction. After the first injunction, I even held a press conference and suggested reconciliation, but the plaintiff never responded. Even after the executives were replaced, I stayed focused on NewJeans' work. Okay. As for why she rejected HYBE's offer to sign a temporary producing delegation contract after her dismissal. Oh, wait. She said something about the conversations with the shaman. 2021, that was before ADOR was established. And that was when the members for NewJeans were not determined, were not fixed. So how does that even make sense? The shaman is my friend or my colleague. So at the time, HYBE didn't have any excuse or reasons to, dismiss me or fire me. So they were using the fact that my colleague's employment or job was occupation was shaman. So they were using this frame to make it look like we were doing some weird stuff and was part of their public opinions campaign. It was, again, before ADOR was established and before the members were fixed. So how could you say that I was trying to take them out? Again, it was a shaman who handpicked the trainees, the members. Let's see. As for why, did I read that? But anyways, she said that if I had wanted to leave ADOR, there would have been no reason to file an injunction. After the first injunction, I even held a press conference and suggested reconciliation, but the HYBE never responded. Yeah, I remember that. That's because reconciliation, what? Even after the executives were replaced, I stayed focused on NewJeans' work. No, she didn't. They say that she rarely came to the office building. As for why she rejected HYBE's offer to sign a temporary producing delegation contract after her dismissal, she said, it was clearly written for media manipulation. The contract said I could only work as a producer for 2 months and that the new ADOR CEO could fire me at any time. At that point, the HR team was already auditing me and making my life miserable. People said, if you just wait until Q1, your put option payout will triple by 2025 while I resign in 2024, but 100 billion won, 1 trillion won, none of those numbers meant anything to me. I didn't need it. Being in that company was hell, and the only reason I stayed was NewJeans. I did nothing wrong. She really said that. 내가 잘못한 게 없는데. I did nothing wrong. When they fired me, the court told HYBE to pay 20 billion won, but I didn't want to fight over money. I had done nothing wrong. All I ever did was run the company cleanly and speak frankly when something was wrong. Why should I step down for that? If I cared about money, I would have waited 3 months and taken the triple payout, but I truly couldn't. I had already done everything I could, and staying any longer was mentally unbearable. So when they talked about money, it felt unfair and infuriating. And then, here, the article says, her voice broke as she said this, meaning she cried. Good. Min Hee-jin continued, I believed I could grow NewJeans into a global group. I had the plan, I had the songs, and I had the confidence. I did nothing wrong. But if I left, the girls would suffer. Why should people who did nothing wrong be hurt because of this? Yeah, she said, I did nothing wrong 3 times already. Or maybe more. Why should people do nothing wrong be hurt because of this? That's what the artists and the groups and the fans that she's been hurting and damaging must be saying. Why should people who did nothing wrong be hurt because of you? She said, my lawyer told me not to file the second injunction. Even Sejong said not to. But how could I accept it? Even the court told them not to fire me, yet they did it anyway. So I filed it. I went as far as I possibly could. What else could I have done? Is this article... okay, sorry. It's about to end. Patience is virtue. When asked, the plaintiff claims, HYBE claims, that NewJeans member Honey attended the National Assembly audit under your direction, and that she met with your legal representatives beforehand. Did you tell her to do that? Min replied, honestly, I don't know if HYBE realizes how easily they fall for their own narratives. But the NewJeans members are incredibly smart. Wait. HYBE는 자기들 가스라이팅은 I'm not sure. I don't know if HYBE realizes, or I don't know how much or how easily HYBE gets gaslighted themselves, but NewJeans members are incredibly smart. They're not the type of girls who would do something just because someone ordered them to. Saying that they acted under someone's instruction just because their views differ is deeply insulting to them. I never told Honey to go. I actually felt sorry that she had to appear. I wanted to go with her since I was an internal director at the time. I even asked if I could. People shouldn't treat the girls like they're foolish. 애들을 바보로 생각하지 않았으면 좋겠다. So, at this point, she is saying that NewJeans members did everything that they did for the past year on their own. That's what she's essentially saying. Meaning, I am clean. I never told them to do anything. In other words, it's their fault, their responsibility. Wow. And I wonder what NewJeans members and their parents are thinking about this. Are they able to, since they're smart, would they be able to decipher what basically what she's saying here? I don't know. I hope they realize. So that was Honey. Regarding why she resigned from her position as an internal director, Min Hee-jin said, "It became unbearable. I had done nothing wrong, yet suddenly it was sexual harassment, this and that. Even though HYBE itself said I was not guilty." Oh, wait. HYBE itself said that Lee Sang-woo was not guilty? Because, yeah, you added pressure as a CEO of ADOR at the time. The employee who was supposedly the victim even admitted to me that that she had been cowardly and apologized. I tried to mediate. I encouraged her to come back to the company. I even said that if she was scared to meet, I would go with her. As a CEO, I did everything I could on a human level, but they framed it as me overstepping my authority. At that point, they were tormenting me so much that I couldn't take any legal steps to protect myself. So yeah, during this part, she is talking about the former employee of ADOR who got harassed by Min Hee-jin and allegedly sexually harassed by Lee Sang-woo, the VP. All right, last paragraph. Addressing the tampering allegations, she said, "The outlet that reported it is basically the face of tabloid journalism, like yellow journalism. Is there any credibility there?" Referring to Dispatch. Oh, goodness. She said, "There's a phrase that says, don't feed the 병먹금. So don't feed the haters or don't feed the trolls. If I respond, it becomes a circus. If I don't respond, HYBE says, see, she has nothing to say. It's incredibly unfair. I don't want to explode with anger. I want to stay calm. I even took a calming pill before coming here. It is what it is." Oh, she also said that, is there any credibility there, referring to Dispatch, and that same outlet was involved in tailing me. Yeah, so this is what she's talking about. Dispatch. I'm really curious about what article that Dispatch will be releasing next day, tomorrow, next morning. Oh, yeah. These photos. And she said, "There's overwhelming evidence of its ties with HYBE," meaning Dispatch relationships with HYBE. "They publish articles about me without ever once requesting a fact check, not even a single call. Why should I respond to a media outlet like that?" There's a phrase. Yeah. Okay. Wait. How long? That was part one. And it took an hour? Sorry, it took too long. Hour and a half. I'm really debating whether to go on to the next one. Because on the one hand, there's a chance that there might be some new information coming out the next day. So I might have to make a new video about it. But on the other hand, this is pretty long. But first, let's do a very brief commentary on this article. Turn off your screen if you don't want to look at her face. But yeah, what stands out immediately in this portion of Min Hee-jin's testimony is the sheer volume of narrative that she uses to cast herself as the only honest actor in a world full of like schemers. Like every question expands into like these long emotional monologues about betrayal, like destiny or misunderstood genius or something, and how the corporation allegedly mistreated her. But once you pull all these emotional wrapping away, the pattern just becomes painfully consistent, right? She reframes every timeline, every disagreement, and every decision so that when something goes wrong, she appears powerless. And when something goes right, she appears indispensable. And her story about joining Big Hit in the beginning is a perfect example, right? She presents Bang Seok as someone who courted her since intensely and calling her family and promising like creative freedom and positioning her as a savior of the company almost. But the story's function is pretty clear, right? She never needed HYBE. HYBE needed her. That's her logic. And what she admits is the facts that already came out that her relationship with HYBE deteriorated not because of broken promises, but because she, like bypassed corporate processes and concentrated authority in herself, and she resisted oversight. But her testimony tries to replace that, documented conflict with the narrative about a misunderstood artist, like seeking purity in a corrupt system or something. And her recollection of the early source music work follows the same pattern. She's assigning every shortcoming to someone else, like leadership lacking direction, or producers were incompetent, internal communication was hostile, and what resources were withheld from her. And again, she's positioning herself as this lone figure trying to protect artistic quality. But according to the NewJeans ruling, she was the one. According to the facts that came out, she was the one rejecting instructions. I mean, people were begging her to work. And the selective framing appears again when she talks about Le Seraphim debuting first. She cast it as a personal betrayal and a violation of a promised timeline. But the court has already ruled that HYBE did not sabotage NewJeans or obstruct NewJeans' debut. But she's treating every scheduling change as intentional sabotage instead of a fact that she was the one who delayed the whole process. And they said, according to the court, she even said that the real protagonist comes out last. 주인공은 마지막에 나온다. So she actually wanted NewJeans to debut after Le Seraphim. And the most telling moment is her claim that HYBE actively blocked NewJeans' promotions. Like, she alleges PR sabotage, internal jealousy, or misallocation of advertising. And executives plotting in bars, like while drinking. And I'm pretty sure they've submitted, if such evidence exists, they submitted to the court for that NewJeans versus ADOR case. But even if they had done it, none of it was accepted as evidence in the lawsuit. And much of it contradicts the industry reporting showing that NewJeans received exceptional promotion and resources. And she repeats rumors with confidence, but without any substantiation. And her comments about like governance and being like used as a IPO material for HYBE or Big Hit follow the same logic, right? And it ties into the behavior that people and the media directly criticize, right? Her tendency to interpret misunderstandings, disagreements, or routine business actions as malicious attacks against her. And in this testimony, that tendency is amplified, right? Every conflict becomes with this, I don't know, evil oppression against her. And every policy, every rule becomes proof of hostility. So yeah, this article, this part 1, reads less like a formal testimony and more like a memoir delivered live, on, and shaped moment by moment according to how she wants the story to feel. And it's so full of cinematic storytelling and shifting cause and effect and stuff, and dramatic retellings. And what it lacks is accountability, right? She never acknowledges her role in escalating tensions and undermining internal governance. The very actions that the court flagged as central to the breakdown. So yeah, this one really reveals someone who believes that any resistance to her direction must be malicious. But that framing collapses when compared to the documented facts in the verdict, right? All right, let me finish it here. I will make the next video as soon as I wake up. Again, originally I was going to read and translate the whole thing without stopping, but I just could not help. And sorry if you have already read the court document in full length and already aware of everything that was mentioned. So it must have been painful for you to watch me to show you the proof and receipts from the court documents to use against her own testimony, right? But I just couldn't help. All right. In part 2, we'll talk about what kinds of questions that HYBE and their lawyers asked Min Hee-jin and how she responded. All right. Let me know your thoughts. Were you convinced by Min Hee-jin? And what was the most memorable part from her testimony? And the questions that Sejong lawyers asked? And what's your reaction? Let me know your thoughts by writing comments in the comment section. And as always, let's stay positive and respectful and classy. Thank you guys. Peace and love. Bye-bye.